Good day. We live in a society that's based for no small part on fear. Okay? Now bear with me, alright? Because this is not all doom and gloom. Think about the reasons that you do the things you do. Now you may be lucky, like me, to do a job that you love. A job which is part of your life, part of your truth. But for many of us, we do a job that we don't like. And we do that because of fear. Fear of not having money, fear of not eating, fear of not being able to pay our rents, our bills. Okay? That's quite profound when you think about it. We keep the laws because for most of us we are fearful of being put in prison, having our liberty taken away, which is sensible. When asked the question, would you break the law if you could, many people, if they're honest, will say, well, some laws, some laws are above breaking. They are moral laws, spiritual laws even. But the thing which is most profoundly true is the way that fear is taught to us in education. Certainly we're indoctrinated. I read some years ago, an article comparing the school to the prison. You are all, shepherded in to your various areas wearing the same uniform. You are taught to respond to the bell, to move from area to area. And whilst this sounds all very negative and very kind of dystopian, the reason I flag this up, and you may disagree, and I hope you do, your world may not be one of fear. I try and make mine as fearless as possible. But I've just written a blog about protecting yourself, and I was reminded, I just thought about something, a comment actually that came from one of my other videos about another blog about sealing the mind. I must just try and find the comment. So there were two comments, one about protecting oneself, and let me just try and find the comment here. I really should have prepared, thought this through, shouldn't I? Okay, so here we are. Stray Cat mentioned about putting down walls and sealing the mind against negativity, and I have heard one school of thought that when you put up walls or you protect yourself, you actually create or attract the very thing that you're trying to protect yourself against. And this is very true, because if we believe in the duality of our reality, as many of us do, then when you create the potential of one thing, you immediately create the potential for the other. Now, this is all kind of contained within the symbol that we know as yin-yang, the black and the white, so you have the black begins small and it grows and grows and grows, and when it gets big, it gives rise to the white, which grows and grows and grows, which gives birth to, and so on and so forth. And within the greatest part of the black or the white, there's a dot of the opposite. So what this teaches us is that within any energy, there is the potential for the exact opposite. And the more you grow that energy, the more that potential will appear. So when we protect ourselves, we actually create the potential to be harmed, attacked, whatever you want to call it. Now you can see this in human nature. When you watch people's body language, you can see people walking. If you go down to your local city centre, or you see people, some people are really up and they're confident and they're looking around and they're engaged and they're checking out. And then there are some people that are kind of meek and just like, oh my God, I've just got to get through this. I hope nobody sees me. They're the ones that are going to get the problems. If problems are going to arise, they're the ones that are going to get the problems. So I was reminded of many years ago, God, like many years ago, and I sat in a spiritual development circle. Okay, many of you may sit in them, many of you may have this experience, many of you may believe you need to do this, and I was told you've got to protect yourself. And I was like, what from? Have you got a dog in here? Is there a wild animal that's going to like ravish me when I'm in meditation? No, there are dark forces at work in the universe. And I'm like, wow, this is like one of those wizard films. This is exciting. And I knew, right from an early age, I knew there was more going on. There was like, I almost felt that if I, a bit like the Truman Show, that film with Jim Carrey, where the light, it's Sirius A, which is a spotlight falls out of the sky, and he starts to think, hang on a minute, something's going on here. And I thought if I could just like take apart reality, I could look through and I could see the stuff going on behind. And when I asked these questions of my responsible adults, they were like, don't ask questions like that. That's like a cult. It's bad. Alright. And then I remember another memory from childhood. We had a Bible, a little Bible, and I was reading it one day thinking, this is a bit weird. And my mum came in and she was like, put that down, don't get involved in that. And I was like, wow, and that's like, the Bible is like mainstream stuff. That's considered to be kind of not weird, but she was really freaked out by that. So I'm like, okay, so the questions that no one can answer and the things that no one can see with their eye, which was born in a night to die in a night, so says William Blake, everybody's scared of that. And for a little while I was too, and then I suddenly thought, hang on a minute. Another memory. One Sunday night. Sunday nights, of course, you know, not so much these days, but when I was little, Sunday was a holy day. A boring day, right? You had like church service in the morning, not for me, and then there'd be like songs of praise and other, you know, religious programs, and it was all very studious and all very holy. But one Sunday night, I remember a film called The Devil Rides Out was on, a Dennis Wheatley story. Dennis Wheatley was quite a renowned writer of the occult fiction back in the day, and I remember my parents being horrified that this film was on Sunday night. But I watched this film and I was like, okay, you've got the forces of good and the forces of evil pitted against each other. You know the forces of good are always going to win, because you know that ties it all off nicely. We can all go to bed relaxed that good has triumphed over evil. But it struck me then, and it strikes me now. Ultimately, there is no such thing as good or evil. Now, before you start pounding your keyboards furiously in disagreement of that, we live in a field of potential. You know, there are potentials for everything. Every experience on the spectrum of reality is there in potential. So I'm not talking about the material, moral debate of what is good and what is evil. We are responsible for making those decisions ourselves. Okay, so we all have our own responsibility to decide what for us is right and wrong, good and bad. I'm talking about a kind of more energetic level where we could look. I mentioned in one of my videos recently that if you look at the constellation of Orion, the Hunter, which is always around, in the top left-hand corner there's a red star, Betelgeuse, and that is a red giant, and astronomers believe it's probably going to blow itself apart anytime soon. Okay, now that, if you were living on a planet orbiting around that star, that would be really bad. Really, really bad, because it's like, okay, this is the end of the world. That's bad, right? But when that star goes supernova, it will send out into space many, many elements that will go towards seeding new life, which is really good. So it's a continuum, you see, it's a continuum. But again, we go to the mind of God or the mind of consciousness and the mind of man, you see. It's where the good and the bad really becomes differentiated, because in the mind of man, I'm going to prosecute a war to overcome evil, but in doing so, I'm going to screw up the lives of all the innocent people that live in that place as well. Bad, bad, bad. No one wins. Well, only the arms dealers. Okay, so there's a big difference when we're talking about what's right and what's not. Okay, so the point of this, I suppose, is to just give you a little bit of a tweak, a little bit of a poke. Check out what you fear. Check out why you do the things you do. Are you a prisoner, a slave of fear? You know, are you constantly looking at us guys on YouTube to try and get answers when actually you've got the ability and the power to make those decisions for yourself, but I'm just a bit too scared to make those decisions. What if I get it wrong? Well, then you'll learn, and then next time you'll do it differently. That's called experience, my friend. Going back to education, I remember being in school thinking, why am I doing this? What am I actually getting from it? I already knew how to learn. That's what we need to teach our kids, how to learn, not facts and figures. My life is not going to be enriched by knowing that pi is the radius, whatever it is, you know, but my life would be enriched by knowing how pi was created. Pi. I joke. My life would be enriched by knowing about the processes that brought the person who invented that concept to come to that passion and interest for geometry, for number, for algebra. My life would be my life would be enriched rather by having interests in the arts, in nature, in science, in music, in culture, cultivated. If you're interested in these things, then here are the books to read, here are the places to go, here are the people to talk to. Not sitting and listening to a lecture on how in 1066 some people invaded this country, and you know, it's like this. Make history living and teach. The point of history is we're supposed to learn not to repeat the same mistakes over and over again, which is all we do, because we live in fear. The fear that we can't govern ourselves, that we need to be governed. What the hell? I know what I need. I know what I need, as do you. The fear that our spiritual reality is distant and far away, and the only way that we can get to it is through a second coming, an Armageddon, a death. So between us and our spirituality is the fear of losing the self. That's not true, because you're spiritual now. It's there now. As it says in the Bible, the kingdom of heaven is close at hand. The kingdom of heaven's in your hand. It's in every cell of your body. Wow. Think about that. There's no barriers, you see. Fear is lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge is the barrier. I want to go from this state to that state. How do I get there? I don't know. I do not know how I get there. Ask. Ask of yourself. Ask of your higher self. Ask of someone that's already got there. How do you do that? And they'll gladly share with you, because that's what people that are like that do. So there we are. Fear is a real limiting energy. So we must guard against it. There's a book called Dune by Frank Herbert. Fantastic book. Changed my life when I read it. I was 18 when I read it. When I was 18, got involved in a motorcycle accident. Some nice drunk man hit me head on, and I spent 6 months in hospital. So I learnt patience, and this book is quite large. It was for me at the time, and I'd looked at it on my mate's bookshelf for many years and thought, oh, I'd really like to read that, but it's too long. Anyway, I had 6 months with nothing to do, so I read Dune. And there's a passage, and I don't think I'm quoting it quite verbatim, but it's about fear, and it says, fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death. I will face my fear. I will allow my fear to pass through me and overcome it. And I read that, and I thought, that's really powerful. I will face my fear, and I will let it pass through me, and it will unchange me, and I will know it, and I will own it. And that's what we must do. We must look at all the things in our life where there are gaps in our knowledge. We must face them and dive into them. My final thought, I guess, and this is a blog post that I've written, so you can check it out, chrisburntarrow.wordpress.com on the blog page. We're all scared of the dark at some level, aren't we? You know, people go, oh, you know, the forces of darkness. I remember this. I mean, she believed totally in what she was doing and saying. So, like, she's living in fear that these demons were out there, you know, waiting to pounce on us and devour our soul. And you know, the notion of a demon comes from the ancient practice where we see it, don't we? And this is a metaphor. Okay, so think about the stories of the old magicians. They would draw that circle, you know, and they would summon the demon and find out its name. And once you've got its name, you control it. It's a metaphor for your own inner fears and demons, the triggers that we all carry around. You know, so somebody looks at me in a funny way, right, and I start to get angry. That's my demon coming out. And that was caused because maybe I once asked somebody that I trusted for help when I was little, and they just looked at me like, what, you know? So that made me go, oh my God. So now I'm reacting to this look, but it's from the past. It's so once you go in, you create your place of safety. You go in, you find that demon, that trigger, and you name it. You name where it came from, then you control it. That's it. But in the dark, our senses are heightened. Our eyes have to operate more to gather up any tiny photon that can trigger our rods and cones, make our optic nerve fire. Our hearing becomes more intense because we're focused not on the external, but we're focused on the internal. Our sense of smell, our sense of taste, our sense of touch, everything gets heightened. And you go within, and there is no distraction. So you go within, you feel your heartbeat, you hear your heartbeat. You may even become aware of your blood flowing. In the darkness we know ourselves. We came from light, and we are light. But there was a moment, just a moment, as we were being birthed, where we knew, not darkness, but we knew the void. We were neither there or here. We were no longer in the flow, and we weren't breathing yet. That's the void. There's no such thing as darkness, there's only the void. I've experienced the void twice in my life. Once after that nice man hit me head on. He was doing 60 miles an hour, the little devil. Drunk as a lord. And I flew over the handlebars and over the car. But I was in the void. I suppose it was give or take. I could have gone one way, or I could have gone the other way. As it happened, after I came out of the void, I was still here with a broken leg. And very little else, actually. So I got away lightly. The second time was in 1993, when I had a respiratory arrest and died. And I experienced the void very consciously. So that's all there is. There is no darkness. There's only a parenthesis between events. Here I am, eternal, yet unborn, a radiant light that is at one with all things. Then there's a little parenthesis as a void. Ah, here I am as Chris. Ah, wow. And then Chris will eventually get worn out down the road, and there will be another parenthesis, and then I'll be back as a radiant being again. And so it continues. I knew somebody that said, I'm never coming back here, I'm done with this life. I'm like, alright, okay then. Like you get to choose. Brilliant. So that's fear again, you know. Didn't like what's happened to me, didn't like the choices I've made, don't want to do it again. Well, why don't you come and do it differently then? In fact, why not do it differently now? Why not start now? Every moment of your life is an opportunity to be born again. Hallelujah. Right? You know, you can reinvent yourself. So don't fear the darkness, because there ain't no darkness. All there is are voids. And the void is the ultimate place of potential. There we go. So I hope that's pushed some buttons, triggered some thoughts. Comments below, please. And yeah, what are your experiences of fear? You know, it's interesting, isn't it? So understand the fear, become free, and remember, darkness is not to be feared. Okay, take it easy, friends. Peace.